he got a job in Washington, and we looked for a place to live. I'd acquired 2 cats. I'm a magnet for animals. And I had grown up in the Connecticut countryside. Neither of us liked apartments. There were some new townhouses, and I found Vienna. I found a little ad for Vienna, and no one knew where Vienna was. We were at my mother-in-law's, one Sunday afternoon. I'd come up every weekend I still had my job down in Charlottesville. He's starting his new job, and every weekend I'd come up to Washington, and I'd scan the paper, and I saw this cottage, and I said, "Where is Vienna?" And my mother-in-law said, "Oh, somewhere out there." I mean, it was really rural. So we called the number and went out that afternoon and ended up with a verbal lease for a year, just a handshake. Mm. And we were very honest. We said at the end, and they didn't want to rent for longer than that.
When was this?
This was in Charlie graduated in 1950, so it was still 1950. And so we stayed there, we rented there, till we found this place in the spring of 1951. And by the time everything was negotiated, we moved in here August 1st, 1951. And with the help of additions, have lived here ever since. It was, I've frequently, affectionately said, it was a dusty little town. It had a couple of grocery stores, tiny little drugstore, at least one gas station, if not 2. I remember in the 50s, Charlie Barber's, I guess it was Esso then, stationed down at the corner of Beulah Road. And it had, we had 2 churches over on Church Street, literally, Wesley Methodist and Holy Comforter started out over there. And the Freeman House was there, just kind of there. And it was still being lived in, as I recall, by Dorothy Freeman, who was the daughter of the family that built it. And she married a Freeman, so it became known as the Freeman House. And it was an interesting town. If you really wanted anything, you had to go to Falls Church to get it.
What is your first memory of Vienna?
It's a hard one. I think my first memory was trying to find the place. People were always getting, we were out on Carl Crest is a development out on Beulah Road, John Sega's development. The original property was about 50 acres. So if you finally found your way into downtown Vienna, you went out Beulah Road for, I guess, about 2 miles. And then there was a long dirt driveway into what was a very old house, I found out later. And it had in back of it kind of a mother-in-law cottage in a way. The ground suddenly sloped. So it was a 1-floor cottage, but on the rear side, enough to have a parking garage under it. But it had a nice little screened-in porch, a good-sized living room, and kind of an old big country kitchen, and a very generous-sized bedroom, and the smallest bathroom you've ever seen. And so, I don't know, it's just a sense of, well, at least we're not in an apartment, we're out in the countryside, and we were both working and going to work every day, so you really didn't get too much of an impression. They had some cats, which I enjoyed, and I think I was just pleased at not having to live in the city or anything. But I never had any real bang, this is Vienna. I was kind of intrigued by it. It was like, it was going out to farm and rural country almost. This area used to be a really major dairy area. Produced, and Franklin Farms development out in the county. Franklin Farms was a big dairy operation, and that all got sold eventually to development. No, Vienna was really rural. I think that we were so engrossed in getting anchored, and Charlie's, in his new job, that we didn't really have time to relate to the community, to form. I think that is the main thing that first year. We had a very nice relationship with our landlord and landlady and their cats, which went with me when we came here. They were happy to get rid of them. And funny things like this beautiful spring morning. And my husband, the first thaw of spring, my husband has to call the office and say he'll be late getting in because he has to put chains on the car. What? The temperature must be 60? Well, everything had thawed, so you couldn't get from the lower level up the drive to get on the out. Yeah. And that shows you where we lived. Chains on the car. He never lived that down.